When the news about Andrea Yates broke, it shocked the nation. How could a mother have killed her 5 little children?
Andrea Yates is the sickest woman I have ever seen.
We never had a doubt that she knew right from wrong. Never.
I was told by people who saw her in those days that Andrea was a fabulous mother. We hero worshipped Andrea.
What were the forces that led her to commit these horrible acts?
We all go to hell, yeah!
She didn't have any ability to judge the rightness or wrongness of what this preacher was saying to her.
You are accountable for those children. No other people does God single out than children.
And in her world, there was no other way out for her children other than to send them to God.
Sometimes you just have to look at it and call it what it is. It's an evil act.
Andrea Yates, next on Mugshots. On June 20th, 2001, Houston police received a 911 call from a normally quiet section of town.
What's your name? What's the problem? I just needed to come. Is your husband there? No. So what's the problem? I need him to come. I need to know why we're coming, ma'am. Is the mayor standing next to you? She? Are you having a disturbance? Are you ill or what? Yes, I'm ill. You need an ambulance? No, I need a police officer. Well, send an ambulance.
Andrea Yates then called her husband Rusty, a project manager at NASA.
She said, "Come home." And he said, "Is anything wrong?" And she said, "Yes." He said, "With the kids?" "Yes." "How many?" She said, "All of them."
When 2 police officers arrived at the house, Andrea confessed to her crimes.
The police showed up at her door, said, "What's the problem?" She said, "I killed my children."
Andrea Yates had drowned her 5 children. Her husband Rusty arrived at the house shortly after the police.
Rusty falls to the ground, slams his hands into the grass. He then spent much time going from window to door, looking in, trying to see Andrea and saying, "Andrea, how could you do this? How could you do this?"
I get a phone call from my sister, turn on the news, and I just couldn't believe it. I just cannot imagine the Andrea that I knew being capable of doing what she did to her own kids.
That Andrea may try to hurt the children, I mean, that never even entered my mind. Not my mind, not my mother's mind. I don't believe any of the family's mind that would ever happen.
The officers led her out the back door to avoid parading her past Rusty and took her to police headquarters in downtown Houston, where they questioned her.
After you drew the bathwater, what was your intent? What were you about to do?
The children.
During the 17-minute confession, Andrea Yates detailed what she had done.
This morning, what time was it that you got out of bed this morning?
At 8:10.
Okay. And who in your household was awake at that time?
My husband, Mary, and Luke, and Paul.
We knew she started with Paul, who was the middle child, and she proceeded with Luke, killed him. We knew that she took John then from her statement and drowned him, put him in the bed. And then she drowned Mary, left Mary floating in the tub when she summoned Noah, the 7-year-old, in there.
For anyone to kill one child, to see that this child is dead, has died, and to have that emotional effect and then go to the next child, it's just, it's hard to even imagine or put yourself in that person's position. How could anyone do that? Occurs to you.
The next day, Rusty shocked everyone by expressing sympathy for his wife.
I mean, I'm supportive of her. It's hard, like I said, because, I'm torn. One side of me, blames her because she did it, but the other side of me says, well, she didn't because that wasn't her, she wasn't in the right frame of mind, and I guess she had, psychotic, side effects with her depression that led her to do this.
Rusty revealed that Andrea had been battling a mental illness, leaving police and the public to ponder whether she was a cold-blooded killer or whether her actions were the result of a severe mental disease.
The only question she asked the whole time was, what are we going to plea? What type of plea, whether guilty or not guilty? And she indicated that she did not want to plea not guilty, that she wanted to go ahead and receive punishment because she was a bad...
Now, the video that you just saw was of when Andrea Yates called the police to say that she had murdered her 5 children. Now, at the time, in June 20th, 2001, the state, the police department in Texas, in Houston, I believe. Yeah, in Houston, Texas, Andrea Yates called the police to say that she had drowned her 5 children, the youngest being aged 6 months at the time of her death. Children and 1. The oldest was 7. Now, the whole point of this is it was a shock factor. It really was. She's not technically in prison. She's just in a low security state mental hospital in Kerrville, Texas. But this was her defense. She was suffering from postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. I have no idea what either means, but well, I know what postpartum depression is, but I'm not sure what postpartum psychosis is. But in a completely unrelated note for this, that Andrea Yates is and will not be, was not the first and nor will she be the last person to murder her children. Sadly. She had been suffering with very severe postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis, and she was represented by Houston criminal defense attorney George Burnham, and then the then Harris County, Texas district attorney asked for the death penalty in a 2002 trial. Her case was placed on some sort of with National rules, sort of mispronouncing that, with the irresistible impulse test, which is a legal test of sanity, and all this was under close public scrutiny in the U.S. She was convicted of capital murder after the guilty verdict. But before sentencing, the state abandoned its request for the death penalty in light of false testimony by one of its psychiatric witnesses. She was then sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. That's 40. The verdict was then overturned on an appeal. But the whole idea of this is that shortly after this, about 2 years after her trial, her and her husband Russell divorced. She was severely psychotic, and she was suffering from psychosis. She was retried, and the Texas jury found that Yates was not guilty by reason of insanity. She was then committed by the court to the North Texas State Hospital on Vernon campus. It was a high security mental health facility in Vernon, Texas, where she received medical treatment and was roommate of Dina Schroer. I have no idea how to pronounce that name. Another one who committed filicide. For those who don't know, it's homicide of an infant child, and she was committed there for committing filicide of her infant daughter in January 2007. Yates was moved to the low security state mental hospital in Kerrville, Texas. The article I'm reading has been divided up into three main parts: her background, the trial, and the popular culture. And now, how she killed the kids? She drowned them in the bathtub in the morning of June 20th, 2001. And her husband had no idea what she was suffering from. And so sadly, this happened. It could possibly have been avoidable, but the whole point of me doing this series is to get, actually the whole point of this video is that to get awareness out of postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. Mostly the postpartum psychosis.